Setting the scene. A Roman evening. The last golden light of day filters through the marble columns of a Roman villa, casting long shadows across polished floors. You can almost hear it. The gentle whisper of silk curtains moving in the evening breeze, the distant murmur of the Tiber flowing through the eternal city below. It's that sacred hour when day surrenders to night, when even the busiest souls begin to turn inward. And here, in this moment suspended between light and darkness, we find ourselves in the presence of someone who understood something profound about the art of letting go. His name was Lucius Annaeus Seneca, though tonight we'll simply call him what he was at heart, a seeker. A man who, despite all his worldly responsibilities, had discovered something precious about the moments just before sleep, something that might speak to your own weary heart tonight. Listen. Can you hear the sounds of ancient Rome beginning to quiet? The merchants packing away their wares in the forum, the clip-clop of horses' hooves growing more distant, the laughter from tavernas becoming softer, more muffled. Even the great city itself seems to exhale as evening settles over the 7 hills. In Seneca's villa, oil lamps flicker to life one by one, their warm glow painting everything in honey and amber. The servants move quietly through the corridors, their sandaled feet whispering against stone floors. Somewhere in the courtyard, a fountain bubbles peacefully, its gentle rhythm like a lullaby for the approaching night. But it's not the grandeur of this Roman home that draws us here tonight. It's something much more intimate, much more human. It's what happened in these quiet evening hours when the philosopher would finally set down the weight of his day and turn towards something deeper. You see, Seneca had learned something that perhaps you're learning too, that carrying the world on your shoulders is not a badge of honor, that giving and giving until you're empty is not virtue, that being everything to everyone often means being nothing to yourself. Picture him now, this man who advised emperors and wrote letters that would outlive empires. He's not in his study surrounded by scrolls and important documents. He's not entertaining guests or solving the problems of the Roman world. He's simply here, present, in his private chambers as twilight deepens outside his windows. The evening air carries the scent of jasmine from the garden, mingling with the warm smell of olive oil from the lamps. Somewhere nearby you can hear the soft cooing of doves settling in for the night. These are the sounds of a world slowing down, of a day finally releasing its grip. Seneca moves slowly, deliberately. There's no rush here, no urgency. He's learned that these moments before sleep are sacred, not for planning tomorrow's battles, but for making peace with today's struggles, not for rehearsing what he should have said or done, but for finding gentleness with what actually was. He settles onto a simple wooden chair by the window, where the last purple light of dusk streams in. In his hands he holds nothing but his own attention. No scroll to read, no letter to write, no problem to solve. Just this moment of being present with himself. And here's what he understood, what he practiced every single night, the art of the gentle review, not the harsh judgment that so many of us inflict upon ourselves as we lie in bed replaying our failures, not the endless loop of I should have and why didn't I that keeps us awake and anxious, but something infinitely more compassionate. He called it examining the day, but the way he did it was like tending a garden rather than conducting a trial. Listen to the quiet around him. The household has settled. The oil lamps burn steadily, their flames barely moving in the still air. Outside, night birds begin their gentle songs. A dog barks once in the distance, then silence returns. Even the fountain in the courtyard seems to bubble more softly, as if it too understands that this is a time for whispers, not declarations. In this stillness, Seneca begins his nightly practice, but he doesn't start with his mistakes or his regrets. He doesn't begin with what went wrong or what he failed to accomplish. Instead, he starts with something radical, something that might surprise you. He starts with gratitude. Not the forced kind of gratitude that feels like homework, not the I should be thankful for that comes from guilt or obligation, but the quiet recognition of what actually sustained him through another day of being human. Perhaps it was the way the morning light fell across his desk as he wrote. Perhaps it was a moment of genuine connection with a friend, or the taste of fresh bread at breakfast, or simply the fact that his body carried him through another day without him having to think about breathing or his heart beating. These small graces, they're easy to miss when we're busy performing, aren't they? When we're so focused on being who everyone needs us to be, we forget to notice the tiny miracles that keep us going. The lamplight flickers gently across Seneca's face as he sits in this remembering. There's no strain here, no effort to feel something he doesn't feel, just a gentle noticing of what was actually good, actually nourishing, actually kind in the hours that have passed. And here's what's beautiful about this practice. It's not about pretending the day was perfect. It's not about denying the difficulties or the disappointments. It's about training our attention to see the whole picture, not just the parts that hurt. Outside the window, the first stars are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. The sounds of the city have faded to almost nothing now, just the whisper of wind through olive trees and the distant murmur of the river. The night air is growing cooler, and somewhere in the villa you can hear the soft sound of doors being gently closed, of a household preparing for rest. Seneca pulls a light woolen cloak around his shoulders, not because he's cold, but because there's something comforting about being wrapped, about feeling held. Even the strongest among us need to feel held sometimes. And as he sits there in the gathering darkness, he begins to understand something about this day that just passed. Not everything about it. He's not trying to solve or fix or perfect anything, but something. Some small truth about what it means to be human, to be imperfect, to be learning as you go. Maybe he sees how he rushed through a conversation when he could have been more present. Maybe he notices how he worried about things beyond his control. Maybe he recognizes a moment when he was kinder than usual, or braver than he felt, or more patient than he thought possible. All of it. The beautiful and the broken, the wise and the foolish, the generous and the small. All of it gets the same gentle attention, the same compassionate witnessing. This is what we've come here to learn tonight, dear one. This ancient art of being gentle with ourselves at the end of the day. This practice of setting down the weight we've been carrying and finding peace with what was, rather than torturing ourselves with what should have been, because you've been carrying so much, haven't you? So much responsibility, so much care for others, so much effort to be good and right and helpful and strong. And somewhere in all that giving, all that performing, all that trying, you forgot that you too deserve gentleness. You too deserve compassion. You too deserve a soft place to land at the end of the day. The oil lamps burn lower now, their light growing warmer, softer. The night deepens around Seneca's villa, wrapping it in velvet darkness. And in this ancient quiet, something timeless waits for us, a wisdom that has been helping weary souls find peace for over 2,000 years. Are you ready to learn what Seneca discovered in these sacred evening hours? Are you ready to find your own gentle way of setting it all down? Preparing for reflection. Come with me, then, into this sacred space. Watch as Seneca rises from his cushioned chair, moving with the unhurried grace of someone who has learned that the evening hours are not for rushing. His sandaled feet whisper against the cool marble as he crosses to a small alcove where his evening ritual begins. Here, on a low table of polished cedar, his materials wait. A simple oil lamp with a wide, steady flame, scrolls of papyrus, their edges soft from handling, a bronze stylus, worn smooth by countless nights of gentle inquiry, a small vessel of ink, dark as the night sky beyond his windows. But first, the lamp. Seneca lifts it carefully, feeling its familiar weight in his palms. The flame dances briefly, then settles into its warm, golden glow. This light is different from the harsh brightness of day. It doesn't demand or expose. It simply offers a soft circle of illumination in which truth can emerge without fear. He carries the lamp to his favorite corner, a small alcove where a simple wooden stool waits beside a window that looks out onto his private garden. The marble here is worn smooth by years of evening contemplation. As he settles onto the stool, the lamp's glow creates an intimate sanctuary within the larger darkness. Can you feel it? This sense of stepping away from the world's demands, the way the soft light seems to hold space for whatever wants to emerge. Seneca places the lamp on the narrow windowsill, and immediately the garden beyond transforms. Where daylight would reveal every detail with stark clarity, the lamplight offers something gentler. Glimpses. The silver leaves of olive trees catch and release the glow. The white stones of the garden path seem to float like stepping stones across a dark river. And the sounds, listen. From somewhere in the garden comes the gentle music of water. A small fountain, no larger than a basin, where water falls in a continuous whisper from one stone level to another. It's not the grand splash of the public fountains in the Forum. This is intimate, personal. The sound of water finding its way home. The air carries other gifts, too. The last warmth of sun-baked stone, slowly releasing the day's heat. The green scent of herbs from the kitchen garden. Rosemary and thyme, sage and mint. And underneath it all, something indefinable. The smell of evening itself, cool and clean and full of possibility. Seneca breathes it in, letting his shoulders drop with the exhale. Already you can see the change in him. The careful composure he wore through the day's duties begins to soften. His face relaxes. His hands, which spent hours holding scrolls and making decisions, rest open on his knees. This is what the evening space offers, isn't it? Permission to stop performing. Permission to simply be. Now he reaches for his writing materials, but notice how he handles them. Not with the efficiency of daytime correspondence, but with reverence. The scroll unfurls slowly, revealing the cream-colored surface where tonight's reflections will live. The stylus fits into his fingers like an old friend. The ink waits, patient and dark. But before he writes a single word, Seneca pauses. He looks out into the garden, where shadows pool beneath the trees, and the fountain continues its gentle song. He's not gathering thoughts or planning what to write. He's simply present, available to whatever wants to be known. This is the first gift of his practice, and perhaps the most radical. In a world that demands constant judgment, constant evaluation of success and failure, right and wrong, Seneca has learned to begin with simple presence. To create a space where the day's events can emerge without immediately being labeled or fixed or solved. You know this need, don't you? This hunger for a place where you can set down the weight of having to have it all figured out, where you can let the day's experiences simply exist without immediately rushing to judge them. The fountain whispers its agreement, the lamplight holds steady, and in this ancient quiet, Seneca prepares to do something both simple and revolutionary. He prepares to look at his day with the same gentle attention he might give to a garden, not to criticize what grew crooked or count what failed to bloom, but to simply notice, to witness, to tend. His stylus hovers over the papyrus now, but still he doesn't write. Instead, he lets his mind drift back over the hours that have passed. The morning meeting with a young senator seeking advice, the afternoon spent reviewing legal documents, the brief frustration when a servant dropped and shattered a favorite cup, the moment of unexpected joy when a letter arrived from an old friend, all of it. The smooth and the difficult, the planned and the surprising, all of it allowed to exist in the lamplight without immediate commentary, like items laid out on a table, each visible, but none demanding urgent action. Can you feel the relief in this? The way the nervous energy of the day begins to settle when we stop trying to solve everything and simply acknowledge? The way the heart can finally exhale when we create a space that doesn't require us to be perfect? This is what Seneca discovered in these evening hours. Not a harsh accounting of failures and successes, but something infinitely more compassionate, a practice of gentle witnessing, a way of honoring the full complexity of human experience without drowning in it. The oil in the lamp burns steady and clean. Outside, the last birds settle into silence. The fountain continues its quiet song, water finding its way from stone to stone, with the patience of something that knows its destination. And here, in this pool of golden light, surrounded by the evening scents of herb and stone and cooling air, Seneca prepares to offer himself the gift that every weary soul deserves, the gift of being truly seen, not judged, not fixed, not improved, simply witnessed with the kind of tender attention we might give to something precious and fragile and worthy of care. Are you ready to join him in this ancient practice? Are you ready to discover what happens when we trade the harsh light of judgment for the gentle glow of compassionate attention? The stylus touches the papyrus now, ready to begin. Reflecting on actions, kindness and neglect, the stylus moves across the papyrus with the softest whisper, like a gentle breeze through olive leaves. Seneca's hand is steady, unhurried. There is no urgency here, no pressing deadline, only this quiet conversation between a man and his day, between intention and reality, between who he hoped to be and who he actually was. Today, he writes, his voice barely audible in the garden's embrace, I offered my seat to the elderly woman in the forum. He pauses, remembering the weight of her gratitude, the surprise in her weathered eyes that someone had noticed her struggle. The simple act had cost him nothing, yet it had created something beautiful, a moment of connection, a small kindness rippling outward into the world. His stylus hovers above the papyrus as he savors this memory. Not with pride exactly, more like recognition. The way you might recognize your own reflection in still water. Yes, this too is who I am, this capacity for noticing, for responding, for choosing gentleness when the world offers so many reasons for hardness. I listened, he continues writing, truly listened when Marcus spoke of his fears about his son's future. Another pause. Another gentle excavation of the day's moments. He remembers how his friend's voice had trembled slightly. How easy it would have been to offer quick advice, to rush towards solutions. Instead, Seneca had simply been present, had let the words land in the space between them, had offered the gift of his full attention. The evening air stirs the papyrus gently, as if even the wind wants to read along. Seneca's breathing is slow, contemplative. There's something almost sacred about this process, this tender archaeology of the day's interactions. I shared my bread with the young scribe who had forgotten his meal, he writes, and again that soft recognition blooms in his chest. Such a small thing, a piece of bread. Yet he can still see the relief in the young man's face, the way hunger had been making his hands shake as he tried to write. These moments of kindness, they're not monuments to his virtue. They're simply true. They happened. They were real. And in acknowledging them, in witnessing them with gentle attention, something beautiful occurs. Not self-congratulation, but a deeper recognition of what's possible, of the goodness that lives within reach, always. But now comes the more tender territory. The places where the day's reality fell short of intention, where tiredness or distraction or simple human limitation created different kinds of moments. Seneca's hand slows slightly, but it doesn't stop. His breathing remains steady. This, too, is part of the practice. This willingness to look at the shadows with the same gentle attention he gave to the light. I was impatient, he writes, with the servant who spilled wine on my toga. The memory surfaces without drama, no harsh spotlight of self-criticism, just observation. He remembers the flash of irritation, the sharp words that came too quickly, the way the young man's face had closed, like a flower folding its petals against harsh weather. But watch what happens now. Instead of diving into self-recrimination, instead of building a case against himself, Seneca simply breathes with it, lets the memory exist in the gentle space he's created. I was tired, he acknowledges, writing slowly. I had been carrying the weight of difficult decisions all day. The wine on my toga felt like the final drop in an already full cup. This is not excuse-making. This is understanding. The way a wise gardener might examine a plant that's struggling, looking not to blame but to comprehend. What conditions led to this moment? What was happening in the soil of his inner landscape? I forgot, he continues, stylus moving with patient strokes, to ask Helena about her daughter's recovery from fever. Another moment of falling short. He'd meant to inquire, had carried the intention through several conversations, but somehow in the rush of daily concerns, this tender attention had slipped away. Helena had mentioned her worry days ago, and he'd promised himself to follow up. The promise had simply dissolved into the busyness of living. The lamp flame flickers slightly, casting dancing shadows on the papyrus. Seneca watches the play of light and dark for a moment. Even this seems part of the teaching. Light and shadow, both necessary, both real. I spoke over Claudius, he writes, when he was sharing his thoughts about the new trade agreements. Yes, this too. The moment when his own ideas had felt so urgent, so important that he'd interrupted, had stolen the space that belonged to another's thoughts. He remembers the slight pause in Claudius's voice, the way his friend had yielded the floor with characteristic grace, but also something else. A small disappointment, perhaps, a recognition that his words had been deemed less important than Seneca's eagerness to speak. But here's what's remarkable about this ancient practice, this gentle witnessing. Each acknowledgement of falling short doesn't create a wound. Instead, it creates space, understanding, the kind of self-compassion that makes real growth possible. Because Seneca isn't cataloging these moments to build a case against himself. He's not collecting evidence for his own prosecution. He's simply seeing. The way a loving parent might watch a child learning to walk, noting both the steps and the stumbles with equal tenderness. I was distracted during the morning prayers, he writes, thinking about the letter I needed to send to my brother. Even his spiritual practice hadn't been perfect today. His mind had wandered, caught up in practical concerns when he'd intended to be present to the sacred. Another small gap between intention and reality. But see how he holds even this? Not with harsh judgment, but with the kind of understanding that recognizes the simple humanity of having a mind that wanders, a heart that carries multiple concerns, a life that refuses to fit neatly into the categories we create for it. The night deepens around him, but the gentle lamp continues to burn steadily, like this practice itself, a small, consistent flame of attention in the darkness, not blazing, not dramatic, just present, reliable, kind. I rushed past the children playing in the courtyard, he continues, without stopping to enjoy their laughter. Perhaps this is the most tender acknowledgement of all, the moments when life's beauty was right there, available, offered freely, and he was too caught up in his own urgency to receive the gift. The children's laughter had been medicine he didn't know he needed, and he'd walked right past the healing. But even this recognition comes wrapped in gentleness, Because rushing past beauty isn't a moral failing, it's simply what happens sometimes when we're human, when we're carrying the weight of responsibilities and concerns and the endless small urgencies that make up a life. The stylus rests now against the papyrus. Seneca's breathing is deep, peaceful. This inventory of actions, both kind and neglectful, hasn't created burden. Instead, it's created clarity, understanding, the kind of self-knowledge that comes not from harsh examination, but from patient, loving attention. Tomorrow, he knows, will bring new opportunities, new chances to offer kindness, new moments when he might fall short of his own intentions, and tomorrow evening he'll return to this practice, this gentle witnessing, this ancient art of seeing oneself clearly without losing sight of one's own precious humanity. Examining thoughts, wisdom and folly. The lamp flame wavers slightly as a gentle breeze moves through the garden, and with it Seneca's attention turns inward to something more ephemeral, yet equally important, his thoughts. The invisible river that has flowed through every moment of this day, carrying him toward wisdom or away from it, toward peace or toward unnecessary turbulence. He closes his eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to better see, to witness the landscape of his mind as clearly as he has witnessed his actions, because thoughts, he has learned, are like seeds. Left unexamined, they grow wild, creating forests of worry or gardens of understanding, depending on which ones we water with our attention. This morning, he remembers, there was a moment of particular clarity. He was reading a letter from a friend in Gaul, a friend struggling with loss, reaching across the miles for comfort. And as Seneca read those words, something shifted in his understanding. Not a dramatic revelation, but something quieter, a recognition that suffering, when met with presence rather than solutions, often begins to transform itself. He had set the letter down and simply known what to write back, known that his friend needed not advice but acknowledgement, not wisdom but witnessing. The thought had arrived like morning light, gradually, naturally, illuminating what was already there. These moments of clarity, he holds them gently now in his memory, not with pride in his own insight, but with gratitude for the mysterious way understanding sometimes visits us, the way truth occasionally breaks through the constant chatter of the mind like sunlight through clouds. But there were other thoughts today, too, thoughts that led him in circles rather than toward clarity. He remembers walking through the forum this afternoon, his mind caught in a familiar pattern, rehearsing an old argument with a colleague who had questioned his writings months ago, playing out conversations that would never happen, crafting perfect responses to criticisms that no longer mattered. Round and round his thoughts had gone, like a dog chasing its own tail. And for what? The colleague wasn't there. The argument was finished, yet his mind had chosen to revisit that territory again and again, wearing deeper grooves of resentment when it could have been noticing the merchants setting up their stalls, the children playing between the columns, the thousand small beauties that surrounded him. He observes this pattern now without judgment, the way his mind sometimes chooses old wounds over present wonders. It's such a human tendency, isn't it? To replay what's finished rather than receive what's here, to spend precious moments of life reliving conversations that have already ended. There was another moment today when his thoughts scattered like startled birds. He had been trying to write, to capture an idea about the nature of time and how we spend it. The concept had felt clear in his mind when he first sat down, but as soon as he lifted his stylus, his attention began to fragment. First he noticed a smudge on the wax tablet. Then he wondered if he should use different words. Then he remembered he needed to send instructions to his steward about the vineyard. Then he thought about the vineyard's previous owner, which led him to wonder about legacy, which made him think about his own writings, which brought him back to the smudge on the tablet. By the time his mind had finished its wandering, the original insight was gone, dissolved like mist in sunlight, and he had been left sitting there, stylus poised, chasing the tail of a thought that had already disappeared into the labyrinth of his own mental chatter. He smiles slightly, remembering this, how seriously he had taken that mental storm in the moment, how frustrated he had become with his own mind's tendency to wander, as if thoughts were soldiers that should march in perfect formation rather than what they actually are, visitors. Some welcome, some less so. Some bearing gifts of insight, others carrying burdens we've already set down a dozen times before. The evening air carries the scent of jasmine now, and with it, another memory surfaces. A moment when his thoughts had been neither particularly wise nor particularly scattered, but simply present. He had been eating his midday meal, nothing elaborate, just bread and olives and a bit of cheese. And for some reason, instead of thinking about the afternoon's tasks or replaying the morning's conversations, his mind had simply rested in the experience of eating, the texture of the bread, the salt of the olives, the way the cheese crumbled on his tongue. For perhaps 5 minutes, maybe 10, his thoughts had been perfectly aligned with his experience. No commentary, no analysis, no planning, just presence. The rare gift of a mind at rest in the moment it was actually living. These are the thoughts he treasures most, the ones that don't try to be anywhere else, the ones that don't reach backward into regret or forward into anxiety, but settle like gentle rain into whatever is actually happening. They're so simple, these thoughts, so ordinary, yet they seem to carry a peace that all his philosophical reasoning can't quite capture. The lamp flame steadies again, and Seneca realizes something about this practice of examining his thoughts. It's not about judging which thoughts are good or bad, productive or wasteful. It's about witnessing, about developing the kind of gentle awareness that can observe the mind's patterns without getting swept away by them. Because thoughts, he understands now, are like weather. They come and go. Storm clouds of worry give way to clear skies of understanding. Fog banks of confusion eventually lift to reveal familiar landscapes. And just as we don't take credit for sunshine or blame ourselves for rain, perhaps we can learn to hold our thoughts with this same accepting awareness. The wise thoughts and the foolish ones, they're all part of the human experience. All part of the beautiful, complicated, perfectly imperfect process of being alive and conscious in this world. What matters isn't having perfect thoughts, but developing the capacity to witness them all with kindness. Tomorrow, he knows, his mind will wander again. It will chase old arguments and lose track of new insights. It will scatter like leaves in wind and occasionally settle like snow on still ground. And tomorrow evening, he'll return to this practice, this gentle observation of the invisible river that carries us all toward whatever wisdom we're ready to receive. For now, though, for this moment, there's just the lamp flame and the jasmine-scented air and the profound peace that comes from seeing one's own mind clearly without needing it to be anything other than exactly what it is. Finding gratitude and contentment. The lamp flame steadies as Seneca shifts his attention, allowing his mind to settle into a different kind of awareness. The examination is complete, the witnessing done. Now comes something softer, something that asks nothing of him except to receive. He closes his eyes and lets his attention drift to the simple fact of this moment, this breath, this heartbeat that has carried him through another day on this earth. The gratitude doesn't arrive with fanfare. It seeps in quietly, like water finding its level, First, there's the warmth still radiating from the stones beneath his feet, stones that have absorbed the day's sunshine and now offer it back to him as gentle heat through his sandals. Such a small thing, this warmth. And yet how it anchors him to this place, this moment, this body that has served him well. His fingers find the smooth edge of his writing tablet, worn smooth by countless evening reflections. The wood holds a subtle warmth, too, the accumulated touch of his hands over months and years of this practice. There's something deeply satisfying about this, the way objects become companions through repeated use, the way they hold the invisible imprint of our attention and care. The jasmine releases another wave of fragrance as the evening breeze stirs, and Seneca breathes it in slowly, deliberately. How extraordinary, he thinks, that the world offers such gifts without asking anything in return. The jasmine doesn't bloom for praise or recognition. It simply gives its sweetness to the air, trusting that this offering has value in itself. He thinks of the meal he shared earlier, the way the bread still carried warmth from the oven, how it yielded softly under his teeth and filled his mouth with the taste of grain and salt and the baker's careful attention. Not a feast, not exotic delicacies, just bread and olives and cheese, and yet how completely it satisfied not just his hunger, but something deeper, some ancient gratitude for sustenance, for the chain of hands that brought this nourishment to his table. The baker, who rose before dawn, the farmers who tended the olive groves, the shepherds who watched over the goats whose milk became cheese, all of these lives touching his. All of these people he'll never meet contributing to this one simple meal, this daily miracle of being fed. His home settles around him with small creaks and sighs, the villa breathing as it cools from the day's heat. These walls have sheltered him through seasons, through storms, through the various weather of his inner life. How easy it is to take shelter for granted, until you remember what it means to have a place to return to, a space that knows the shape of your days, rooms that hold your books and thoughts and dreams. The olive tree above him rustles softly, its leaves catching and releasing the lamplight like scattered coins. This tree was here before he was born, will likely remain long after he's gone. There's comfort in this continuity, in being part of something larger and more enduring than his own brief passage through time. He remembers the conversation with his friend Marcus earlier today, how they'd sat in comfortable silence after their words were spent, how Marcus had smiled at something, some private thought, and how that smile had somehow made the whole world feel more benevolent. These moments of connection, so ordinary they almost disappear, and yet they're what make life rich, what make it worth the effort of showing up day after day. The water in the fountain nearby continues its gentle murmur, the same sound that lulled him to sleep last night and greeted him this morning. Water, always moving, always returning to itself. Never the same stream twice, and yet always essentially water, like consciousness itself, always flowing, always changing, always somehow familiar. His body rests comfortably against the cushions, muscles relaxing into the support, shoulders dropping as they release the day's small tensions. This body that carries him, that translates thought into action, that feels pleasure in warm bread and jasmine-scented air. How rarely he pauses to appreciate its quiet competence, its willingness to serve without complaint. The lamp oil burns with a steady golden light, pushing back just enough darkness to create this circle of peace, this small sanctuary of reflection. Light itself feels like a gift tonight. The way it reveals the texture of stone and wood and fabric, the way it makes ordinary things beautiful simply by touching them. He thinks of his students, their eager faces as they grappled with difficult concepts today, The moment when understanding dawned in young Helena's eyes, the careful questions that showed they were truly listening, truly thinking, to be trusted with young minds, to play some small part in their unfolding. What an unexpected privilege this has become. Even the day's challenges feel different now, viewed through this lens of gratitude. The merchant who tried to cheat him, perhaps struggling to feed his own family, the servant who spilled wine on important papers, nervous about some trouble at home, the friend who spoke harshly, carrying his own invisible burden. Not that these things don't matter, not that boundaries don't need to be maintained, but tonight they feel like part of the great human comedy rather than personal affronts. Everyone doing their best with what they have, everyone carrying their own portion of joy and sorrow, everyone deserving of the same compassion he's learning to offer himself. The evening air moves across his skin like a gentle blessing, neither too warm nor too cool, just the perfect temperature for a human body at rest. Even the air feels generous tonight, offering itself freely to his lungs, asking nothing, giving everything. His writing materials rest nearby, ready to capture whatever insights arise. But for now, there's no need for words. The gratitude is too full, too present, too immediate for language. It exists in the space between thoughts, in the pause between heartbeats, in the perfect stillness that contains all movement. This contentment doesn't depend on achievement or recognition, doesn't require anything to be different than it is. It arises simply from paying attention, from letting himself receive what's already here, what's always been here, waiting for him to slow down enough to notice. The city beyond his walls continues its evening rhythm, people finishing their meals, children being tucked into bed, lovers walking hand in hand through moonlit streets, all of it part of this great tapestry of human life, all of it somehow connected to this moment, this breath, this quiet gratitude that asks for nothing and embraces everything. And in this embrace, in this gentle receiving, Seneca feels his entire being settle into a peace so complete it seems to extend beyond the boundaries of his own skin, touching the jasmine and the stones and the lamp flame, touching the very air itself, until there's no separation between the one who is grateful and the gifts for which he gives thanks. Drifting into sleep, a night of peace, and in this embrace, in this gentle receiving, Seneca feels his entire being settle into a peace so complete it seems to extend beyond the boundaries of his own skin, touching the jasmine and the stones and the lamp flame, touching the very air itself, until there's no separation between the one who is grateful and the gifts for which he gives thanks. The oil lamp flickers softly beside him, casting dancing shadows that seem to mirror the gentle movement of his breath, in and out, each exhale releasing a little more of the day's accumulated tension, each inhale drawing in this profound stillness that has settled over his garden like a blessing. He sits for a long moment in this quietude, not thinking, not analyzing, simply being present to the fullness of this peace, watching how it moves through him like warm honey, slow and golden and completely unhurried, filling every corner of his awareness with its gentle presence. The sounds of the evening have grown softer now, the distant voices more subdued, the footsteps fewer and farther between, as if the entire city is gradually surrendering to the same peaceful rhythm that pulses through his own being, the natural rhythm of rest, of release, of letting go. Seneca becomes aware of his body settling deeper into the stone bench, his shoulders releasing their careful posture, his hands resting open and relaxed in his lap, no longer holding, no longer grasping, simply receiving whatever this moment offers, and finding it more than enough. The jasmine continues its quiet perfuming of the air, But even this sweet presence seems to fade into the background of a deeper sweetness, the sweetness of complete acceptance, of being exactly where he is, exactly who he is, in exactly this moment, with nothing to change, nothing to fix, nothing to improve. His writing tablet lies forgotten beside him now, the stylus set aside, the words of his reflection complete, but more than complete, transformed into something beyond words, into this living experience of peace that needs no documentation, no preservation, existing fully in the eternal present of this breath, this heartbeat, this gentle awareness, slowly. So slowly, it seems like a natural unfolding rather than a decision. Seneca rises from his stone bench, his movements fluid and unhurried, as if he's moving through water or through a dream, each gesture soft and considered, honoring the delicate quality of this peace that surrounds him. He reaches for the oil lamp, its small flame steady and warm, and begins to walk slowly back toward his chamber, his bare feet silent on the cool stone paths, each step a meditation, each breath a prayer of gratitude for this day that is gently releasing its hold on him. The corridors of his villa seem different now, transformed by this quality of deep peace that moves with him, the familiar walls and doorways appearing softer somehow, more welcoming, as if they too are preparing for the sacred transition into sleep, into dreams, into the mysterious renewal that comes with night's embrace. In his chamber, the simple bed awaits, its linen covers turned down, inviting and clean, a sanctuary prepared for rest, for the complete surrender that sleep requires, the trust that tomorrow will take care of itself, that this moment of lying down is enough, is everything. Seneca sets the lamp on the small table beside his bed, its gentle light creating a circle of warmth in the growing darkness, a soft boundary between the active day and the receptive night, between the world of doing and the world of being, between consciousness and the deeper wisdom that emerges in dreams. He sits on the edge of his bed, feeling the give of the mattress, the softness of the covers, and takes a moment to simply appreciate this simple luxury, this basic human comfort of having a safe place to rest, a quiet space to lay down the day's burdens, to close his eyes and trust in the natural rhythm of sleep and waking, of effort and ease, of holding on and letting go. His tunic falls away easily, the fabric whispering to the floor, and he slips beneath the cool linen covers, feeling them settle around his body like a gentle embrace, like the arms of night itself welcoming him home, welcoming him into the timeless space where healing happens, where the soul restores itself, where peace becomes not just a feeling, but a way of being. Lying on his back, his head cradled by the soft pillow, Seneca gazes up at the ceiling where the lamplight creates gentle patterns, shifting and flowing like thoughts themselves, but thoughts without urgency, without agenda, simply the natural movement of awareness as it begins to soften, to blur, to merge with the larger rhythm of rest. He becomes aware of his breath again, but differently now, not as something to observe or direct, but as something that breathes him, that moves through him like a gentle tide, carrying away the last remnants of the day's concerns, carrying him deeper into this ocean of peace that has no shores, no boundaries, no end. The sounds from outside his window grow fainter still, becoming part of the larger symphony of night, the distant murmur of voices blending with the whisper of wind through leaves, the soft padding of feet on stone merging with the rhythm of his own heartbeat. All of it weaving together into one seamless tapestry of sound that lulls rather than disturbs, that invites rather than demands attention. His body begins to feel heavier, not with fatigue but with a pleasant weightiness, as if he's sinking gently into the earth itself, into the solid foundation that supports all things, all worry, all striving, all the elaborate constructions of the thinking mind, dissolving into this fundamental ground of being. This basic okayness that requires nothing, that simply is. The oil lamp flickers once, twice, its flame growing smaller, and Seneca reaches over to extinguish it, the room settling into a darkness that feels not like absence, but like presence, like the dark richness of soil from which all growth emerges, like the quiet depths of a well from which all wisdom springs, like the gentle darkness of the womb from which all life unfolds. In this darkness, his other senses seem to expand, the jasmine scent drifting through his window becoming more vivid, more present, the texture of the linen against his skin more noticeable, more comforting, the sound of his own breathing more intimate, more soothing, as if darkness itself is a teacher, showing him how to receive, how to rest, how to trust. His thoughts begin to slow, to space themselves out like clouds drifting across a vast sky, each one appearing, lingering for a moment, then dissolving back into the blue emptiness from which it came, and he watches this process with the same gentle attention he brought to his evening reflection, neither pushing the thoughts away nor holding them close, simply allowing them their natural rhythm, their natural flow. Images from the day drift by, the face of the friend he listened to, the warmth of the bread he shared, the feeling of the stone bench beneath him during his reflection. But these memories feel soft now, dreamlike, as if they're already being transformed into something deeper, something that belongs not just to him, but to the larger story of what it means to be human, to be alive, to be part of this vast interconnected web of existence. The boundary between waking and sleeping begins to blur, like the boundary between self and other, between inside and outside, between the one who is grateful and the gifts received. All of it softening into one seamless experience of being, of breathing, of resting in the arms of something infinitely larger and more trustworthy than his small individual will. And as Seneca drifts deeper into this liminal space, this threshold between day and night, between conscious and unconscious, between effort and surrender, he carries with him the essence of his evening practice, not as thoughts or concepts, but as a lived knowing, a cellular understanding of what it means to witness one's life with compassion, to hold both light and shadow with equal tenderness, to find gratitude not as something to be achieved, but as something to be received, like breath, like sleep, like the gentle darkness that now cradles him. The jasmine continues its quiet blessing through his window. The night air continues its soft caress across his skin. His heart continues its steady rhythm. And somewhere in the distance, so faint it might be imagination, the sound of water flowing, or wind through trees, or perhaps just the sound of peace itself, moving through the world like a river, like a prayer, like a lullaby sung by existence itself to all its children who are finally ready to rest. And in this readiness, in this complete surrender to the natural rhythm of sleep, Seneca's breathing grows deeper, slower, more spacious. Each exhale a small death, each inhale a small rebirth, until even the distinction between breathing and being breathed dissolves, and he becomes simply part of the larger breathing, the cosmic rhythm that moves through all things, through jasmine and stone and lamplight and dreams, through every act of kindness witnessed, every moment of falling short held with compassion, every flash of gratitude received like grace, all of it flowing together into this one eternal moment of perfect rest, perfect peace, perfect trust in the mysterious intelligence that guides both sleep and waking, both holding on and letting go. Both the daily practice of conscious living and this nightly surrender into the vast unknowing that restores and renews and prepares the soul for another day of gentle witnessing. Another opportunity to practice the ancient art of being human with kindness, with awareness, with the deep contentment that comes not from having everything figured out, but from trusting the process itself, trusting the rhythm, trusting the breath, trusting the darkness, trusting the light that will surely come again, trusting it all as Seneca finally, completely, gracefully lets go.